This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. And today is 27th of May. It's a Monday, 9:13 in the morning. We're going to have a spike of heat today, well into the 90s. And then it's going to drop down after that tomorrow, back into the 80s. So it's just kind of like a one-day heat wave. So I already got the air conditioning on. Okay. Let me start by going into the chat and making sure we got sound and picture. Please don't post in the chat until I get my posts up, if you don't mind. It'll take a minute or two. You gotta wait a bit for the live stream to get up there. We got sound and picture. Okay, so don't post in the chat till I get my posts up, please. And I'll tell you when that is. It's not going to be a long time. Almost done, guys. Just wait another couple of minutes at most. Okay, feel free to post in the chat if you want. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to start by doing some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so I'm not going to do much at all with current events today. What I'm going to show you is what the Lord showed me regarding America, the daughter of Babylon, specifically Revelation 17:18, Isaiah 47, Jeremiah 50:51. I could throw in Psalms 137:9, but it's not highly relevant, but it's there. So before you understand these things, you have to understand the Zechariah 12 siege on Israel, which is the next battle regarding Israel. You got to understand the year of recompenses associated with the day of vengeance, and the year of redemption also associated with the same day, the day of vengeance. So there has to be an overlap. So the last day of the year of recompenses can be the first day of the year of redemption, or it doesn't have to be that, but something has an overlap. I don't know how much. What I do know is on or around August 1st, 2023, the Lord told me that it's the year of recompenses, that we're in it. He didn't tell me this is the first day. He didn't say it started. So I would say, no, the day he told it to me, it could have been August 2nd or 3rd or something. It was very close to August 1st. But the, end of the year recompenses could likely be in June or something also. I don't know. They didn't give me the precision, and there's probably a reason for that. Maybe down the road they'll give it to me. So I had a bone in my throat. That's an Israeli expression. With the scripture, those of you that survived the sword, let Zion come to mind. I kept going around with this. How do you fit this in? Is it the ruler fighting ruler or ruler against ruler? Well, it could be. Seems to think violence is in the land, or that could be the enemy agents, And then I started, thinking, well, there's the enemy agents, and then they'll come in from abroad, from overseas with ships and planes and bomb and attack America, and I didn't see that in there very clearly at all. Okay? And then they tried to heal her, referencing America, the daughter of Babylon, but she would not heal. And then they go to their own countries. Now, Israel, all the 12 tribes that are there, are going to go to Israel via the wilderness for a stop where they pass under the rod, and they enter the bond of the covenant. The true believers are going to go to Israel. The trigger for that is most likely the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power, like lightning from east to west, and every eye shall see him. That is probably most likely the event of Zechariah 12:10. And that is most likely the day of vengeance, because the vengeance ensues right after that. And that is probably the same day that the daughter of Babylon gets it. And it could also be the same time when the nations that he scattered the Israelites into are destroyed. And that's found in Jeremiah 30, verse 11. Very clear. And that's associated with the birth pangs and the birth of a nation in a day, the travail. When Israel is born, it's not May 15th, 1948. That's bogus. Israel, you got to think of it as Israel's born again. Okay? They're a new creature in Yeshua HaMashiach, because they see their Messiah and they get changed. Because when you read the scripture, he pours the Spirit out on them. But although it just mentions that happening in Jerusalem and through the house of David, which I assume means those in Israel, but other scriptures seem to indicate that it's broader. And then when you combine that with John, I'm just giving you a background for some of you that are unfamiliar. Now, all you got to do is go into my YouTube channel, and my videos are in the live section, and start poking around. A lot of my videos start with news and current events, so you just fast forward until the Bible study starts, that's all. Generally, 90% of the time or more, the videos start with the news, the wars and all that, okay? So that's all you got to do, all right? So you've got to understand these things before you're going to understand, true Bible prophecy. Everything I'm talking about is in the Bible. Isaiah 34:8, Isaiah 61, and Isaiah 63 are very plainly going to exhibit to you the year of recompenses, the year of redemption, the acceptable year of the Lord, and the tie-ins to the day of vengeance and redemption and recompenses. So it's all there right in your Bible. Because a lot of people don't teach it, I can't help you there. Okay? That draw your own conclusions. Let's leave it that way. The Lord told me to stop kicking against the people that teach false, not to do it, like I have been. So I cut it way back. Okay? Now, I think he wants people to wake up to the truth in the scriptures and then draw their own conclusions rather than me hammer them. And I can be a hammer, and that's not what he wants me to do right here, right now, in these days. Okay, so as you know, there's sleeper agents in America. Okay? The border is still open ever since all this stuff started with Iran attacking us, what must be close to a month ago, 3 weeks minimum, and the genocide with Gaza and the Lebanon attacking us, and the ICJ court with the arrest warrants for Netanyahu and the defense minister Gallant and all this stuff, Ukraine and Russia, China and Taiwan. Nobody's talking about the open border that never got closed. Maybe Abbott stopped them from coming into Texas, and maybe he kicked some of them out of Texas. I'll give him that much credit. But he certainly did not stop these people from crossing the border illegally and then filing for amnesty if they wish and becoming legal. He did not stop that from happening in the other states, California, Arizona, New Mexico, etc. So I'm not even sure he stopped it in all of Texas, but he probably did a decent job. Okay? So they're still coming in, all right? The theory from people that have observed pictures of the border crossers is, and it's pretty much across the board with everybody, 70% of them are military-age males. There are not a lot of females, and there are not a lot of families at all. The lowest possible estimate, using that 70% figure that I could come up with, is that there's 2 million sleeper agents, not total illegal, sleeper agents in America. I think that is extremely low and not realistic. I would say you're probably at 5 to 7 or 8 million. 6 million would be a reasonable figure, I think. Now, to give you perspective on this, using 6 million, now, these figures are 2 months old, so, I mean, we could even say 7 million by now. Okay, now they're not only coming in from Mexico, they're coming in from Florida with the seacoast, probably coming in all over California from the seacoast, and they're coming through Canada. The border between America and Canada is relatively unprotected. You just walk over. These people are sleeper agents. They're not worried about, filing for papers, getting a social security number, getting a job, working for 10 years, getting social security, going back to their country, and retiring on social security. No, they're not interested in that at all. Okay? Now, what we have to understand is getting weapons in America is extremely easy. And it appears now that when the sleeper agents get their papers, so they cross the border without permission, illegally if you will, then they immediately go to a border patrol office, and from Mexico they have the forms already filled out. And they say, I'm seeking asylum, here's my papers. Border Patrol accepts the papers if they're filled out correctly. I don't know how long they detain them, probably hours. And then they issue them new paperwork, having filed for amnesty, and they give them a court date, which the court dates are currently, 2032 and forward from there, so it's years. So if it's a 2032 court date, they're legit legal until 2032. Now it appears they can buy weapons using that amnesty paperwork, and they're not subject to criminal record checks because there's no criminal history or any history on that. So they could be people that were recruited out of a mental institution in Iran or Syria and they, pay to ship them over here. They come in somewhere in Central America, or Mexico, go into Mexico, and then cross. There's organizations that help them in Mexico. So they could buy weapons. Now, a federal court the other day said that it's a violation of the Second Amendment to deny people the right to own and bear arms if they were a felon. And as I told you the other day, historically I used to study the Second Amendment and stuff many years ago. And the way they interpret the Second Amendment when they do it correctly is they go back to how the founding fathers did it hundreds of years ago. So even if you go back to the days of Bill Hickok and, Wyatt Earp and, what was the dentist guy? I forgot his name. All the famous gunfighters and marshals and stuff like that. People were going to jail. They had courts with judges. Some of the bigger cities had resident judges. A city of 8 or 10,000 probably had a circuit judge that would come every few weeks. So if you got arrested, the marshal, the sheriff, or the police, they had all different versions, sometimes all at the same time, and they had jurisdiction fights with each other, would come and they would conduct a trial. And they had lawyers back then, but lawyers were very, it wasn't that, Abraham Lincoln became a lawyer, and I understand he never went to law school. I think you just needed somebody to recommend you, or, something like that, and have, people of the community recommend you, and then you're a lawyer. I imagine they did have law schools as well. How long they were, I don't know. Today, the law books are massive. You could fill a whole library. But back then, there probably wasn't that much to absorb. So, cities had their own laws, states had laws, and the federal government had laws. So, people could be prosecuted in different courts like today. But anyway, when somebody got, did something bad like armed robbery or stagecoach holdup, they put them in jail for a few years. They may even get 10 years if they were violent, or they might get 1 or 2 or 3 years. The prison conditions were generally not that good. And they had labor, they had to work in many settings. And then when they got out of jail, what did these people do? A lot of them lived and worked on ranches. They had to protect their livestock from wolves, coyotes, bears, various predatory, packs of wild dogs and predatory animals. So they had a rifle or a pistol, and they shot the predatory beasts. They had to defend themselves because they were rural. The next house might be, 2 miles away or a mile, so they would have a gun to defend themselves if some criminals rode up on them. People that lived near the Mexico border had a lot of problems with Mexican criminals crossing the border illegally and conducting raids, stealing cattle and robbing and all this other stuff, right? Then you had American bandits that would run around and rob people and banks and stagecoaches, and then when they collected enough money, they would cross over the border into Mexico. They'd get themselves a nice border town where they'd rent a hotel and go to the bars, and they'd hang out. And then people had to hunt, because you can't grow meat, like you can corn or potatoes, so they would hunt. And nobody ever thought that because they went to jail they could never own a gun. That didn't happen. So they all had guns after they got out of jail. It was necessary. Okay? So the judge was astute and looked back and said, yeah, we don't have a constitutional basis to stop people from owning a gun because they went to jail. Now, there's no provision for stopping this with family domestic violence or anything else. So it's not going to be, well, you can own a gun unless you did domestic violence. So anybody that was a felon is going to be able to own a gun. The interesting thing for that is there's many people in the United States, millions I guess, that have been convicted, and the charge usually reads something like this: convicted felon in possession of a firearm. And then they have convicted felon possession of a firearm used in another felony. So the people that were convicted of these things are likely going to start getting lawyers from legal aid societies that'll be happy to help them file I guess you call it a writ in the court to have the record expunged, because those were unconstitutional charges. I had a very good friend for a good 40 years or more that was a criminal lawyer. He kind of was, he's dead now, he's sort of the hippie-ish, in a way. He was kind of left-wing leaning, and he was my neighbor. I met him in San Francisco and we became friends until he died. And he wound up working for the California Public Defender's Office for, I would guess, 45, 46 years. Now, the way that worked, he wasn't an employee. People have a right to an appeal. You can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you, so that applies also to an appeal. So many criminal cases would go for appeal. And the public defender of California receives these cases, and they have to assign a lawyer. So they had big lists of lawyers that were qualified, and they would send them the cases, and they paid him. I don't know what he paid at the end. I think he was getting maybe $90 or $100 an hour. He died maybe a year ago. But back in the 80s and 90s, I think he was getting $60, $70 an hour, which was not much for a lawyer. But he didn't need to maintain an office. He didn't need to keep hours. He rarely had to go do any appearances or visit with the client in person. He did have to at times do it, but it were very rare. And he did have court appearances. And he had one of the highest appeal victory rates in the system, and it was less than 1%. So he explained to me how criminal appeals rarely ever go anywhere. They don't really go anywhere. So he started telling me maybe 10 years ago or something that there were court cases that he was seeing where the prosecutors were charging these people with crimes that were not on the books. They were making up crimes. There was no statute. They just made it up. And the judges wouldn't routinely throw it out of court. And he had to defend against that. So that just goes to show you, this is a good 10 years ago, what a sick state the American judicial system is when the prosecutors and the judge let people go to jail for crimes that are not written in the books as a crime. The way America's judicial system works, if it says in the criminal statute you can't do it, you can't do it, according to them. But if it doesn't say you can't do it, you can do it. I mean, any lawyer will tell you that, but the prosecutors have changed that to, if you do something we don't like, we're going to charge you with a crime, even though there's no such crime in the books. So there is no more judicial system in America for many years. So anyway, these 20 million convicted felons in America, and maybe higher, are now going to be able to own guns. Now Biden is also enabling the states to make their own criteria for who can vote. So I don't know if it's in the Constitution that if you get sentenced to prison for a year and a day, you can't vote. I don't know if that's in there. But that's the general policy that they follow today. So you have to be, so if a judge gives you 6-9 months in jail, it has no effect on your ability to vote. But you could still be a felon and just serve that much time. But if a judge sentences you to a year and a day, then you go through life as a felon and you can't vote. So that's to make sure that the prisoners don't get any rights. Now combine that with the fact that going back perhaps 50 years, they started privatizing the prisons. And corporations started building and operating prisons, and they'd get money from the state for each prisoner per day. And they hired correction officers that were private, they're not state employees. And I think in some cases, it varied from state to state. In some states, they were given status of a corrections officer, which basically meant that they might, under limited circumstances, be able to arrest somebody if a felony, not a misdemeanor, was committed in their presence, like in their eyesight. I believe they could effect an arrest, which I doubt they ever would do. And they could carry weapons like a police officer, a gun. And they got a badge and they got an ID card, and when the cops would pull them over, they'd flash their badge. And some cops would let them off, but police officers and highway patrol and state troopers have a tendency to view corrections officers as not real police. So they might get off and they might not get off, or it varies, They would rarely ever use correction officers today to run down escaped prisoners, but back in the 1960s in Florida, for instance, they did. The prisons kept, they had correction officers there. They had a badge and an ID card, they could carry a gun. And they kept bloodhounds at the prison. I was in many of the Florida prisons, not as an inmate, studying criminology, and I was in many of them. And then I worked in law enforcement a little bit, you could say, in Florida. I was really an intern, and I was in several prisons there. Not that many, but I was in some. And they kept bloodhounds. I remember Rayford, which is where they kept the electric chair, and they called it Old Sparky. I remember they showed me the electric chair. I didn't want to sit down in the darn thing, but they took me into the control room where they would work the electricity, and they had a glass window, they could see the chair. And it was just like, it was a demonic feeling, I believe. I got out of there, I didn't like it. I was not a believer at the time. I had no intention of sitting down in the chair. I'm sure there was no electricity, but I wasn't sitting down in it. So they would hunt the prisoners down with bloodhounds. They'd go to his cell and get clothes with his scent on it, and the bloodhounds, they had a pack of them, maybe 3, 4, 5. They'd go after the guy, and they generally took shotguns, maybe pistols, and they'd try to hunt them down. But today, I don't believe that goes on. From the state prisons, I think they phone it in to the police, and they, now if they see a guy, let's say, climbing over the wall or something, yeah, the correction officers will shoot at him and go after him. But once the guy gets out and he's escaped, they pretty much turn it over to the police. They don't do it. They're not set up to operate outside the walls of the prison. Oh, they patrol around, maybe for a quarter of a mile or a half a mile they're set up, but that's about it. I'll be back in a minute, a second. Quick break. Before I forget, someone asked me what's going on with the grapes and the grape harvest in Israel, and I'm going to have my wife check. Right now, I don't know, and I don't think she knows much about it because it's not the time for it. It's usually like August, so, but I'm going to have her try to get some information on it. I haven't forgotten that. So Biden helps the felons, and tensions are high in America, and they're going to be glad they can carry guns. And that means in some states where they don't need a permit, they can carry open or concealed. And and there's not going to be any more charges as felon in possession of a weapon or a convicted felon using a weapon in the course of a crime, like a stick up or something. They can't, there's no such charges anymore. And probably a bunch of people are going to get released from prison for those charges. Now, these people are probably going to vote for Biden, don't you think? And the states that like Biden are going to let them vote. They're not going to vote for Trump. Now, this week we might see a verdict come in on Trump. Today is Monday. Tomorrow, the jury should be out deliberating on 34 counts. I think they're all criminal in New York City. And I don't know how many days they'll deliberate. They could come back in 3 hours. They could come back in 3 weeks. I don't know. They could get a hung jury. I don't know what'll happen. I really don't. But Biden announced that the day after he's going to do a national press conference. So I think the information leaking to Biden is that Trump's going to get criminally convicted on some of these cases. Now that's likely going to throw America into turmoil, because a lot of these people in America, and I'm talking tens of millions now, are running around saying it'll be okay, January 20th we'll have Trump again, and he'll fix things in the next 4 years, and they'll stay fixed for a long time, and then maybe we'll have Trump, we'll get Congress to approve a third term for Trump, or Trump's vice president will take over or something, right? And this is the dread of the left-wing woke people, and this is the hope of the people that are the gun people, the survivalists, the preppers, the right wing. This is their hope they're clinging to. Okay? And now they might see their hope shattered. If he's a convicted felon, can he really run for president? Well, maybe not, but he can state that it's under appeal, right? And he might be able to go to the Supreme Court and have that everything set aside, and he could still run for president. But the Supreme Court's going to get weird, because if they approve that he could run for president and be president, then the appeals fail and he's convicted. He's already president. What's he going to do? Could a president pardon himself? That is a question that nobody has the real answer to. The Constitution never specifically mentions it. Trump could hand out pardons for anything in an unlimited amount. Any president can while they're president. So could he pardon himself? He might try it. I don't know. Prophetically, we're not going to, the country isn't going to even last till the November election, but the people in America don't know that. So their hopes are going to be shattered if they see Trump going to jail. this could cause ruler against ruler, because Trump is out there, hey, this Biden stole the election, and all of these kind of things. And let's check one or two messages real quick. And Trump can heat the people up if he wants to, and I think Trump wants to. And all he has to do is start telling the people there's not going to be a country left if we don't do something about this. He'll use the budget, foreign affairs, the illegals, the open border. He'll go after them on many different levels. And the people are not going to like the prospect of 4 more years with Biden. Some will, and many are not going to. Okay? Many are not going to. Could be an uprising. Could form in many different ways, I don't know. And it could splinter America into factions. It may not just be, the red team versus the blue team. It may be the red team, the yellow team, the orange team, the black team, the purple team, and they're all up against each other in different, pacts of agreement. Don't know. Governor Abbott of Texas has certainly never tried to promote himself into being a revolutionary type leader. Not at all. All he cares about is Texas. And neither has DeSantis. And there are no other state governors that are doing anything about anything like that. And the natural contender, you can't have a serious ruler-fighting ruler, or civil war, if you will, without leaders. Of course, Biden is the leader, and Trump would be a dynamic, powerful, charismatic leader that would rally the people. And of course, his concern is his own selfishness. He doesn't want to go sit in jail. I mean, let's say they come back with 9 counts and they give him, 23 years in jail. You think Trump's going to just say, okay, I'm going to die in jail? Biden will write an executive order that the Secret Service doesn't have to cover him in jail. He lost his right to Secret Service protection when he became a felon. The Secret Service will back that because they'll say they don't know how they can protect him in jail. It's absurd. How would they protect him in jail? I don't know. That I as a deputy sheriff many years ago, I worked in jails, maximum security and stuff. Now, I don't have any idea. I mean, it's absurd. They'd have to give him a one-man cell. Okay? They'd have to have at least one Secret Service agent, probably 2, sitting outside his cell when he is in his cell round the clock. Okay? All the food and everything else brought in to Trump would have to be inspected. They would have to be in the kitchen watching Trump's food preparation. Okay? They would have to go empty the showers out when Trump took a shower. Now, 2 Secret Service agents are not sufficiently going to be able to protect them. They're not going to let them carry their guns inside the prison. They would let him carry stun guns, they would let him carry batons, and they probably would let him have pepper spray. And these guys, they can use guys that were Navy SEALs and recon Marines and, Rangers and Green Berets that have deep martial arts experience. And they could present a reasonable deterrent, They could also wear vests that are anti-stab vests, so they would have a pretty good edge. But two's not going to do much. Four would be a lot better, and they may have to do four. So they basically would need to put Trump on his own ward, basically, okay? And have a handful of Secret Service agents there every shift. And a shift for them isn't 8 hours, it'll be probably 6 hours. And they usually work 2 hours and they get an hour off, or 2 hours off, I forget what it is. They don't put them out, protecting somebody more than, 2 hours. Now, if they're working on counterfeit money or running background investigations and stuff like that, they'll work an 8-hour shift, But it would be very difficult to do this with Trump. It would cost a fortune. If they tried to remove his Secret Service protection, Trump's lawyers would file emergency appeals to the Supreme Court as a former president. They would look at it, and they might rule that Trump is right. His life would be in danger, and secrets about the United States would be in danger, and insist the Secret Service protect them. That basically means Trump is isolated. And then he would file appeals that this is incorrect, he should have house arrest, he wasn't a threat to people's lives and limbs, and round and round it goes, and nobody knows where it stops. But this could likely be over this coming Friday. Or it may go on an extra week or two or so till the jury deliberates. We don't know much about the jury. I imagine the lawyers following the case know quite a bit about what they think the jury's going to do and all, but I have no idea. But I can tell you that if this happens, it's going to impact America greatly, and likely ruler versus ruler, ruler against ruler. Why do I say that? We have no other leader emerging. They convict Trump, his motivation to call for civil war is going to be 9.8 on a 10 scale, okay? And Biden's grossly incompetent about everything, including, calming the people down and talking them out of the Civil War. He's the mouthpiece of the federal government, and he's grossly incompetent with dementia and stumbling, getting lost on the stage, and all these other things that are documented on many, many YouTube videos. Losing his train of thought, talking like the other day he said Kamala Harris was the president of the United States. It's impossible for him to rally the people together behind his cause. 75% of the people on his staff, like Blinken, Austin, Sullivan, were working in the White House under Obama. So that's 75% of his personnel, of his staff, his cabinet. That's not often put out in the media, but many people know it. Now it might be 74%, it might be 76%, 78%, 72%, but the rule of thumb, approximately 75%. Okay? So let me check the chat to see if I got to throw the garbage out real quick, and then we're going to proceed. So, if you're dealing with a figure 6, 7, 8 million sleeper agents, China has about 2 point something, maybe 2.2 military without the reservists. America got about 1.3. India is like the size of China. So the sleeper agents added together would be like the total armies of China, India, and America, and possibly, if there's enough of them, even add in Russian military. That's how big the sleeper agents are. The worst case is they're the size of the Chinese regular army, or twice the size of the American military, twice their size. Getting weapons is easy. Look what Hamas did to us. America, they just get a factory for any excuse, have their own people come there and make missiles, rockets, bombs, shoulder fired rockets, all behind closed doors. They could do it on farmland someplace. They're very careful. Okay? They can get guns easily in America. All they got to do is open up a gun store, or 20 or 30, and keep a high inventory of 400 or 500 guns. People want to come in and buy a gun, sell them a gun. Stick to the law, sell them a gun. Then order it right back from the distributor, so you keep several hundred guns in stock. There's some gun stores that'll have 1,000 guns in stock. Okay? Now, they could sell them legally to these sleeper agents that are filed for amnesty. Or they don't even need to bother, just wait for the day and then just empty the warehouse, you know. They could also make guns with machine shop equipment, CNC and everything else. They can make guns, you know, using the blueprints for CNC machines and things like this, and it's not that difficult. Okay, they do it in the West Bank, they do it in Gaza, and they're pretty good guns. So they could have millions of guns. They know how to make Katyushas and other rockets easily. They can produce those in America. They don't have a handicap. They can get whatever they need. So how hard would it be for them to attack American military bases? Easy. These bases are poorly defended. They got military police. They might put 8 or 10 at a gate. They might have 2 gates at a base, 3 maybe. And they got a handful, and I mean a handful of guys driving around in Jeeps and Humvees doing patrol. Okay? And then they got a few administrators sitting in an office, maybe 2 or 3. And then you got military intelligence on the base, or naval intelligence, and you know, there might be a handful of them on a base. And they carry sidearms all the time, so they'll have pistols. Big deal. And very few soldiers ever walk around on a base carrying weapons, only when they're out at the range, or they're practicing shooting or something. Do they have weapons with ammo? Sometimes they might carry weapons to go marching and stuff, but these are guns that don't have ammo. They're just to keep them, you know, with the shape of the gun and the weight, and marching with it, and crawling on the barbed wire and through the bramble bushes and stuff like that. They could easily hit a base if they want to with 5,000 or 10,000 sleeper agents armed. They could take trucks and turn them into technicals. They got so much money. Just mount 50 caliber or any kind of machine gun on there. And they could buy like F-350 trucks, right? And put big bumpers on there and just ram through the barriers. I'm not talking 2 or 3, 30 of these things. They could ride around the base with 4 or 5 guys in the back of the pickup shooting at the soldiers. You want to take a pickup and get it to give you protection, you just get pieces of steel plate. You go inside the bed of the pickup truck and just rivet them into the body of the pickup. Okay? Then you have to bolster the springs and the shock absorbers on the pickup, but that's no big deal because you're putting a lot of weight in there, right? And you're going to burn the brakes and the transmissions out, but that's going to happen after thousands of miles. They don't need to worry about it. So they lay down in the pickup and they're behind steel plate, you know, 1/4-inch steel plate. It's going to stop most rounds. They could go to 3/8, whatever they want. Personally, I don't think they'll bother. They'll just use the truck. They're going to get to the arsenal. They're going to block the soldiers from getting to the arsenal. They're going to block the soldiers from getting to tanks, armored personnel carriers, and vehicles with machine guns. They're going to stop the planes from taking off. And they're going to round up the soldiers on the base and kill them. They're going to rape the women. They'll probably burn the soldiers alive. They'll torture some to get intel as to how they're, you know, about hidden bunkers and other things they could get. They'll destroy the radar. They'll destroy the computers, and they'll probably get the arsenal and confiscate the weapons. And they're smart enough to understand that there's probably 9 or 10 big military bases in America maximum, okay? And they need to hit those simultaneously. And they got more than enough manpower. They could probably take a base out with 1,000 guys or 500 guys. But they're going to go with thousands. Remember what they did to us October 7th. That's what's going to happen in America. They burned our people. They burned the houses with the people in it. What does it say in Jeremiah 50:51? I will kindle fires in and about the cities, and the people are going to burn. Okay? How did Gaza and Hamas do fires in Israel before this October 7th? They took balloons that were they helium, I guess, and they tied maybe 8 or 10 balloons together, and they had a little basket under it, and in the basket they put a burning whatever it was, some kind of a device that was on fire. They lit it, they launched the balloons, watching the wind. The balloons flew into Israel. The helium or hydrogen, whatever they were using, would eventually go out, and the balloon would come down and land on the ground, but that thing they had in there that was burning was still burning, and it caused fires. They burned up, I think, 25,000 acres of farmland, agricultural land down in the south. Okay, and they did this hundreds of times. Netanyahu didn't do much about it. He didn't do much about anything, like Biden. And they can do that to America. There'll be computer attacks in America on all sorts of things, all over at the same time. It says they're going to get it suddenly in a day, in an hour. Well, they'll hit the military bases on the same day. Once they take the military bases over, which is only going to take 2, 3, 4 hours per base. Once they take the bases over, that's it for America. It's over. You think the police are going to do you any good? Slight delay, maybe, or they're not going to hold up. These guys are going to steal equipment from the bases. They might have pilots in there that are going to take the planes and helicopters, and the tanks, and the armored personnel carriers, and the armored Humvees, and shoulder-fired rockets, and all kinds of stuff. They'll shred the police. The police will maybe fight them in the beginning, and until they realize they're going to get mowed down. Then they just call in sick or don't show up. That's all. Police aren't going to be able to do anything about them. There's too many. The only invasion you might get is it says the Great Wall of Babylon is going to go down, and that wall would either be, it's symbolic like the radar and the air defense systems of America, which I don't think it is, or the actual wall, which is between America and Mexico, and that's where the sleeper agents came in from Mexico. So they may just shred the wall, blow holes in it or something, and there might be a lot more of them hanging around in Mexico, and they're going to come in. The Mexicans themselves, will they come in? I don't know. They're not Muslims, and these invaders are going to be predominantly Muslims, heavy duty, and they may be afraid to do it. I don't know. Don't know. When they invaded Israel on October 7th from Gaza, they came, and the regular Gaza citizens came with Hamas. So you might see the Mexicans come in too. And that's to take a spoil, to rape, steal, that kind of thing, murder. Now, to understand this before we read the scriptures, you need to understand what happened to the original Babylon. The Jews were there. Nebuchadnezzar didn't want to let them go. The 70 years was up. God rose up a guy named Cyrus from Assyria, and he came against Babylon. And he started attacking them. It didn't work very well. He couldn't get through the walls, and they drove him off. And then he immediately took all his huge army and had them dig 28 tributaries to the river that ran under the wall of Babylon into Babylon. They kept a large amount of food and supplies inside the walls of Babylon, so if a foreign power laid siege to Babylon, they could hold them out. They could hold them off, and, eventually they'd have to leave. So they would have had enough food for many months, if not years, plus various supplies, weapons and, sandals and coats and stuff like that. So, Cyrus diverted the river going under the wall of Babylon. That was their source of water. They didn't play survivalists and have, 17 million gallons of water in bottles or anything like that. So he had his army dig 28 tributaries overnight, or during the night, or whatever. And the water just drained away from Babylon, and it enabled the soldiers to walk into Babylon going under the fence. And they got in. And when the Babylonians woke up in the morning, they were occupied. So what did you accomplish with this? There was many Jews living there that God promised they would be safe. If the Assyrians under Cyrus did a conventional siege, they would be outside the wall, and they would have thousands of archers shooting over the wall, and arrows would rain down at random periods of time on them, people killing a lot of them, injuring a lot of them. And a lot of these arrows would be wrapped in pitch, like, wheat straw or grass wrapped around the arrowhead, covered with tar or some other flammable, and they'd light it and shoot it over there, and cause massive amount of it would just be a massive amount of destruction. And the Jews would start getting killed. Then they also would use catapults, where they put big rocks in catapults and flung them over the wall. These weapons are indiscriminate. They didn't know who they're going to hit. And the other thing they do is they take big balls, like a 3-foot ball of pitch and wheat straw, and put tar over it, put it in the catapult, light it, and launch it over the wall. It's hard as heck to put that out. especially when they don't have the river to get the water from anymore. So the place would start burning, and then the Jews would be getting killed indiscriminately. So let's see how this plays today. So let's say the planes come from Russia, China, Iran, whoever all these other countries, whatever countries you want to. We'll go through the countries, but they come and they start dropping bombs and launching missiles. Well, how's God going to protect His people? It won't work very easily, similar to what happened in the old Babylon. Okay, won't work. Submarines and other ships launch missiles. Again, indiscriminate. It won't work. His people will be getting killed. Bombs, same thing. It's not going to work. So the sleeper agents, that'll work. Why? It'll start with attacks on the military. Okay? And that would certainly be the clue to get out of Dodge, okay? Then it'll expand to burning the houses, because they're going to burn the houses just like happened to us in Israel. Now, why do I keep talking about America and what happened in Israel? Because Biden didn't want Israel to come to the Netanyahu to come to the White House. He wouldn't do it. Then all of a sudden in September he pops up and says, yeah, Netanyahu could come here anytime he wants, right? So on September 24th, shortly thereafter, Netanyahu goes and visits Biden. Then 2.5 weeks later comes the October 7th massacre. Okay? Now that's extremely suspicious, especially when you consider that all our security mechanisms were not working. How about that? The odds of that with all of them, the multi-layered defenses not working is, probably something like 75,000 to 1 or 1,000,000 to 1. We had sensors. Nobody was heeding the sensors. They detect footsteps. Okay? We used to keep trackers there, so if somebody did sneak in, there were Bedouins that know how to get around in the desert, and they would follow the guy's footprints and run him down and catch him. We had outposts with soldiers in them with binoculars and night optics watching, and they saw what was happening, and they called the command center and said, hey, we're being invaded, and they laughed at them. Okay? It says in Babylon they're going to be led to the slaughter like rams and sheep. These animals are being walked through passageways. They don't know they're getting taken to a place of slaughter. They're probably suspicious, but they follow anyway, and then they get their throat cut and they bleed out. They don't realize it until they're basically bleeding, and then they start to get the idea, but maybe not even so. So it's very much what's going to happen. They don't understand it. The soldiers are on the base. They don't think anything's going to happen. This is the base. But they get it. Then they're going to start doing the cities, and then you're going to see for fear of the sword, the laborers that do the sowing for, planting the crops and the harvesting, the agricultural workers, many from Mexico and other countries, are going to, for fear of the sword, go home to their own country. But that's not going to happen until this stuff starts. Maybe with the ruler fighting ruler, but maybe not. And then those of you that survived the sword, let Zion come to mind. So those of you that survived the sword, so there already is death and destruction in America. It also says that he's going to dry her waters up. Well, how long did it take to dry the Red Sea up? Hours, so they could cross, It doesn't take God very long at all to dry waters up. So don't go off and play Popeye the Weatherman and think it's going to take 3 months to dry the waters. It's up to him how long it takes. Okay, so you're already there. That's the message that the Lord wanted me to give you, is that you're already there. And they're in place. Now, what about Russia, China, Iran? Well, chances are, when I look at it under this light, that China will really attack Taiwan, and North Korea will attack South Korea, and China will get in the fight, and America has 360,000 soldiers and sailors and Air Force and Marines and, Coast Guard stationed in the Pacific Asia region, which is high. The Middle East, the lowest they got is about 60,000. And Europe, it's pretty similar, about 60,000. So you got almost half of the American troop strength is stationed overseas. You probably got 10,000 in Africa, and another 10,000 here and there, but it's probably approaching half. All right, so we don't need to be looking for that invasion. Now I'll go through some scriptures and break it down for you, okay? Checking the chat. So I was always trying to find the invasion, and I wasn't getting it. Okay, so we're going to start with Jeremiah 50:51, and I might bounce around some. I don't want this to be too long. And the reason that I believe the Lord showed me this today to show you is that the time is so short. You may not have to wait. I'm saying may possibly not have to wait till the end of July. It could happen in early June, let's say. Okay. The word that, Jeremiah 50 verse 1, the word that Jehovah spake against Babel and against the land of the Chaldeans. Chaldeans were the soothsayers, the fortune tellers, the witches in the old Babylon. By Jeremiah the prophet, declare you among the heathen nations, and publish and set up a standard, publish like a sign, it stands like a sign, and conceal not, say Babel. There's no word Babylon in Hebrew, and the Bible here is in Hebrew. It's called Babel, and it means confusion, but for some reason, unbeknownst to me, the English translators call it Babylon. So I'll say Babylon. Babylon is taken. Bel, that's one of the demonic images from the old Babylon, is confounded. Merodach, again, another evil spirit, idol image, is broken in pieces. Now, you see, who's going to come into America and break the idols? Will the Russian soldiers do it? I doubt it. They're in Russian Orthodox churches and different things with idols. They won't do it. With the Chinese, they don't do it. They got Buddhist idols all through mainland China. They're not going to do it. Would the Muslims do it? Bingo! Say Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces, and her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. There you go. Statue of Liberty and many others. Thousands of them. For out of the north there cometh up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, they shall depart, both man and beast. Okay. Does that mean that Trudeau in Canada has raised up an army of 3 million that we don't know about and stacked millions of Chinese there, and he's going to invade America? Not at all. It's referencing the north of Israel, okay? Now, I want to tell you the countries that can be considered north of Israel. Okay? Lebanon is directly north of Israel. And continuing up into Lebanon further, you hit Turkey, which is still north of Israel. Syria is northern of Israel, as is Iraq. And you could say Russia is north of Israel, though it's northeast. But if we're taking the old Israel that David had, where they had Syria, and stuff like that, it would be closer to north. And also Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Iran could be construed as being north, especially of the land that our fathers had, which would have pieces of Jordan, pieces of Syria, and maybe Iraq, I'm not sure. Okay, so these are the people. I'll read them to you right now. Lebanon, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Russia, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Iran. Those are people that can be construed as north of Israel. And let's break it down for Mohammedanism. Lebanon, much of the country is Islam. Turkey is Islamic majority. Iraq is Islamic majority. Syria, Islam majority. Russia, substantial amount of Islam. Armenia is Islam. Georgia, I'm not sure. Azerbaijan is Islam, and Iran is Islam. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Jordan are not really to the north, nor is Oman, nor is UAE, or Qatar, Bahrain, or really Kuwait. You might be able to throw it in there, but it's really kind of, it could be in there. Qatar and Bahrain could be in there too, maybe, because they're in a northerly direction. So, yeah, maybe. How active in this they would be, I don't think very active. Okay, they're people that like to do nothing except have harems, gold-plated Rolls Royces, eat the best food in the world, buy the best clothing, the best jewelry, the best houses, the best this, the best that, and just feed their flesh and do nothing else. And that's them, Now, this doesn't mean that China would not help them. We found and captured Chinese military or intelligence agents in Gaza working with Hamas. It happened, there was quite a few, and we found Chinese weapons. So would the Chinese have sleeper agents there too? I expect so. They'd be more sophisticated than the ones coming out of the Muslim majority countries that are terrorists. You see, these terrorists are the ones that they've been sending over there. So Hamas, most of Hamas is in Gaza, they're tied up in Gaza. They might have some, but they're not really. Hezbollah, oh yeah, Hezbollah's all over the place. They're in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria. Yeah, they probably sent a ton over there. The Houthi rebels in Yemen, they say their ranks are up to 600,000. They probably sent a ton over there. Syria, more of the Iran-backed militias in Syria than Assad. Iraq, yeah. Turkey, yeah. And all these other, they've been sending people there. Now, Russia probably has too, and China, and possibly North Korea. They could be sending them there to build weapons and, teach them about how to use weapons and things like this. I don't know. But yeah, don't assume they're not in there. But you see, when we look at this, it's basically going to be a Muslim majority attack, because you look at them destroying the images and the idols one more time. North Korea are atheists. They're not going to care about idols. They probably have Buddhists in North Korea too with idols. China got Buddhist idols all over the place, Buddhist temples. They're not built to take down idols. Neither is Russia. They got plenty of churchianity idols from the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, and other churches they got there, like Catholic churches. So then, the Muslim majority people that are used to living without idols will break the idols. And there was a long list of those. So that's a clue we get, the destruction of the idols, that it's going to be Islam doing it. There's more clues that are gruesome. So it appears that Netanyahu and Biden worked something out regarding October 7th. Probably to snare on Israel, to get Israel all excited, start wars, and then hope the Arabs would come and wipe out Israel, and they would stop giving Israel the weapons and let Israel just fall apart. And then along comes the election, and Biden's scared about losing the election. He doesn't know what to do, but they still haven't given us the 3,500 bombs they're holding back. So then we get into, the land will be desolate, none shall live there. The old Babylon is not desolate. They got museums there, people are there. It's not like this. It's not the old Babylon. The old Babylon's Iraq. In those days and in that time, Jehovah, saith Jehovah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together, going and weeping, and they shall go and seek Jehovah Elohim. In that time is the second Exodus. So that has to relate to Zechariah 12, because the second Exodus follows the victory Israel has in Zechariah 12, courtesy of the two witnesses burning up their enemies on the right hand and the left, which is found in Zechariah 12, verse 6. It's very easy to understand. So, this shows us the timing is directly tied to the second Exodus. Why should America have its own harvest or its own great Exodus without the rest of the world? It makes no sense. But the next great Exodus is going to happen after the victory Israel has in Zechariah 12. I don't see the people coming to Israel while Israel is being surrounded and attacked. How do you play that one? I don't think it plays. Okay? Got it? Now, it's not right to say second Exodus. You had the first Exodus from Egypt. You had the second Exodus from Babylon. The third Exodus from Rome in 70 AD is still not over. The half a time, because the time at times and half the times is counting Exoduses, is the great day of the Lord, and half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. There's nothing else it could be. That's as of now unfulfilled, and it's found in Zechariah 14, verses 1 to 3. Okay? So, we had an exodus of a sort in the Balfour Declaration in 1917. For about 7 or 8 years, the Jews were allowed to come here, buy land, settle down. Then they started putting quotas in and stopping it. Then you had another exodus in 1948, And then you had little exoduses, and you had another great exodus in 1990 into 91 with 1 million or so Russians coming over here. I think it was over 1 million, 1.1 or something like that, which is substantial. This next Exodus is so great, they will no longer talk about Moses' Exodus. You've got to read Jeremiah 16, Jeremiah 23, and Ezekiel chapter 20, starting in verse 33 to the end of the chapter. Now, I'm not going to do all that today. I've done it several times in the past. It says, "They shall ask the way to Zion," that's Israel, "with their faces thitherward, saying, Come and let us join ourselves to Jehovah in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten." So something happened. They got changed. Did they see the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, and did the Lord take their sins away like he did with the Jews in Jerusalem in the house of David? Apparently he did something. Why would they stay like that? I remember the first time I went to Israel 35 years ago, some people in the family were trying to talk me out of it, and they told me that they went to Israel on a trip a few years ago. They said they were so glad to get back, they were ready to kiss the ground when they got back in America. My grandparents told me that they never went to Israel. First of all, they left Russia before World War I. So there was no Israel, okay? So they never went to Israel. They went to America, which was the promised land to the people in Russia and Poland. And then he told me we never went to Israel, speaking of the post-1948. He said, because we were too old. They don't need us there. They needed young people, not old people. So they thought about it anyway. But by the time 1948 hit, they were probably in their 50s, and they didn't see a reason to go start life all over again over there at that age, because Israel was a lot of basically agriculture. And I mean, you had construction, you had restaurants, you had cars and buses and trucks and airplanes and electricity and telephones and all this stuff, but it was predominantly agriculture, and there was a massive amount of kibbutzes, and that was hard work. Kibbutzes would really give you a hard time if you didn't get up in the morning and work hard. And they worked, basically they stopped working Friday. A lot of them stopped at lunchtime, and that could be anywhere from 12 to 3 o'clock, but I would say all of them were finished by 3 o'clock. And in the short days, when the winter went, then they probably stopped at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, if not noon. And that gave the people time to prepare a Shabbat meal, clean the house, and get ready for Shabbat. And then they worked again Sunday morning. You only had a day and a half off. Now, I worked under that system many years ago, decades ago. I was employed as a marketing guy for a kibbutz with medical equipment, and I tell you that it's not as restful as having Saturday and Sunday off, believe me. Back then, there was no TV to speak of, and there was no radio or anything, and there was no internet. So what I used to do is buy the Jerusalem Post in English Friday, and it was a pretty big paper for Israel, and it had a lot of it in English, and read that, sit around the house, and basically rest, go to the nearby park and sit in the park, and then we had a phenomenon that still goes on. If Shabbat's over, let's say at 6 o'clock, by 7 o'clock, everything expired. Jerusalem was renowned for this. If Shabbat's over at 6, by 6:30, 7 o'clock, it explodes. Everything comes to life. You have no idea. Regular stores that sell clothing and things open up. Some little mini market stores open up. The big supermarkets generally don't do it. And all the restaurants, the bars, the discos, and all that open up. The taxis are active. The place springs to life. It's remarkable. But at about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, it starts getting quieter and quieter and quieter, and then boom, it gets real quiet by sundown, And yeah, people drive cars and stuff, but not so much. And then it springs to life. And what a lot of the people do is Saturday, they sleep as much, the young people, the party animals, they sleep Saturday during the day. So they go out Saturday night and they party. They go to the bars, the discos, they have parties at houses, whatever, right? And they stay out till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they go home and they sleep a few hours and go to work Monday morning. So they build their sleep up in the afternoon on Saturday, and how well that works, I don't think it works very well, but I never really tried it, because from the first time I stepped foot in Israel, I was always a believer, so I was never here as a non-believer. I don't have any idea what it would be like. So, yeah, I'm going to take a quick break for a second, and we're going to go through more of the scriptures, and I'm going to keep illustrating to you that there really is no enemy invasion with an air force and warships and stuff like that. It's not there. Of course, the implication of this whole thing, why the Lord had me deliver this today, is you got to understand that it could happen any day now. And it's going to happen suddenly, it says, in a day or an hour. And the whole Biden administration is so nincompoopy. They're like children, they don't know what they're doing. It appears that the sleeper agents in the open border were to get Biden votes from these people that turned against him. It was probably Obama's idea, or who knows. Okay. Yafa, you're such a pain here. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Jehovah in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. So something has happened. They have changed. Okay? My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away. On the mountains they have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All that found them have devoured them. And their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against Jehovah, the habitation of justice, even Jehovah. That means they sinned against Jehovah and Israel, even the Lord, the hope of their fathers. The other day I used the term false Israel, that they set up a false Israel, the daughter of Babylon and the other nations, in 1948. And the reason I say that, it is the land of Israel in part, although this amount of land is referred to as Judah and Jerusalem, not Israel, because we don't have all the land that our fathers had yet. So, why do I use the term? Well, I reference the false churches. They call themselves churches of God and the Messiah. You know, they don't use the right name, Jehovah and Yeshua HaMashiach, but they, you know, they say that, and they teach incorrectly. And they operate incorrectly. And they break the scriptures, and that's what Israel does. They call themselves Israel, and they don't use the Bible, they use the Talmud predominantly. And they lead the people astray. And they give the people the promises and the prophecies of how God's going to fight for you and all that. And they leave out the part that when you're not following the Torah, the curses of the Lord are going to come on you, not the blessings. And they don't follow the Torah. They have no intentions of doing it. They've taught the people that the Talmud overrides the Torah. And they don't let the people write or pronounce the name of God, Jehovah. They say you can't say it, you'll get punished if you do it. So they've blotted out God's name from Israel, the rabbis. And then in the Talmud they say that Yeshua was a witch, a false prophet, a bastard, not the Son of God, never rose from the dead, and so forth. See what I'm talking about when I say a false Israel? Okay. The land is correct, people are correct, but it's a false Israel. Verse 8, Jeremiah 50, remove out of the midst of Babel and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the he-goats before the flocks. Now the he-goats are the tough ones. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babel an assembly of great nations. Now, this is, you know, I used to think this means an invading army. The word for assembly is really, you know, correct. It means, actually, it's the word for a congregation. Kehillah. And that's what we have. These sleeper agents are coming from many different countries. Okay? That's what we got. I don't see the planes and the ships coming with the soldiers marching off the ships and the paratroopers dropping in. I don't see any of this. And of course, to come up against Babel, an assembly of great nations. From the north. Well, the north country. The word for country is men, that's from. It doesn't say north country. They twisted it, you see? Oh, wait, maybe here it does. Northland. All right. It says north from. No, it just says from the north. It says great, gadol, goyim, heathen, north from the north. They put the word country, they put the word land in. Okay. From the north land. Eretz means land. It's not a particular country. See, they twisted it around. In their defense, I'll say you can't translate the Bible correctly into any language unless you know correct doctrine. You just won't get it right. And it was not, correct doctrine wasn't around back then. Okay. They shall set themselves in array against her from thence. Now, array means like surround, and against her from thence. Let's see what that really means. It says from there. It doesn't say that. It says in array. An array kind of means an array. From there. Okay, so they took great unprecedented liberty in doing this to make it match their doctrine that they didn't understand wasn't right. Or maybe they did. And they didn't care. They wanted it that way. She shall be taken, captured. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man. Now, back then, an arrow, what did an arrow mean? 2671, chetz. Where the heck did this go? Hold on. It can mean an arrow, a spear, a piercer. What's a bullet? A piercer. It also can mean a wound. So it's not that highly restrictive to be like a bow and arrow, okay? And when this was written, if God brought the concept of a bullet in, people would have understood how to make guns way before the time. Shall be as a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. No, yeah, forgo. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. The word for satisfied is sabah, satisfied. So they're going to be very successful in spoiling her. Now these sleeper agents are not wealthy people. These are countries that are run by dictators, and the regular people are poor. And it's not going to take a whole lot to satisfy them. Because you were glad, because you rejoiced, O you destroyers of my heritage. That's what he's doing to Israel now. Don't commit any genocide in, in Gaza. But look what he does to Ukraine. He supports Ukraine. He don't care what they do. Because you were grown fat as the heifer at grass and bellow as bulls. That's America. Your mother shall be sore confounded. That's the original Babylonian, who are the mystery Babylon, the great Revelation 17. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. The hindermost is the most recent, the last of the nations. God only has 70 nations. America the UN, got about 200. Because of the wrath of Jehovah, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babel shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babel, round about, all you that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrow, for she hath sinned against Jehovah. So, put yourselves in array. Let's check that word. A rock. It means to prepare, to lay in order. Another place we'll read about ambushes, so they're going to bushwhack the military. Roundabout. Yeah, it's pretty much there. Shout against her roundabout, she that giveth her hand, her that means surrender. Her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down. For it is the vengeance of Jehovah. Take vengeance upon her, as she hath done, do unto her. The vengeance is sort of a clue to the day of vengeance, I would say. Cut off the sower from Babylon, and him that handleth the sickle in the time of the harvest. Those are the agricultural workers from Mexico and other countries. For fear of the oppressing sword, for fear. It's from fear. No, wait a second. From the face. It's from the face of the oppressing sword. They shall turn every one to his people, and they shall flee every one to his own land. So these people are not believers, and they're not Israelites. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First the king of Assyria hath devoured him, and last this Nebuchadrezzar, king of Babylon, hath broken his bones. Now, this Nebuchadrezzar is the President of the United States. It's not the old Nebuchadnezzar. He's making an analogy between the old Babylon and the daughter of Babylon, America, and the leader of America. He's referring to by the name of the bad leader of the Babylonians that didn't want to let the Jews go. Was picking on Israel. But it says, hath broken his bones. So America's going to do a lot of bad things to us. I think above and beyond October 7th, but that could have been enough. Therefore, thus saith Jehovah of armies, Elohim Yisrael. See, he keeps saying he's the God of Israel in these passages. So it becomes clear they messed with his Israel and he's the God of Israel. So it's over for them, the bad ones. Behold, I will punish the king of Babel and his land as I have punished the king of Assyria. And I will bring Israel again to his... Stop it, Yaffa, you're annoying, it's too much. And I will bring Israel again to his habitation, that's the land of Israel, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim and Gilead. These are places, I believe, that's in Jordan that we don't have right now. In those days, although Carmel is near Haifa, Carmel, if it's the same place. Yeah, all right. In those days and in that time, saith the Lord, the iniquity of Israel shall be sought for from our enemies. They're going to want to hurt us. Oh, look at the sins, shall be sought for, and there shall be none. And the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found. For I will pardon them whom I reserve. That's the remnant. So this would happen with the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man. Yeshua paid the price for the sins and for the healing. By his stripes you are healed. But all this has been postponed about 2,000 years. As per Hosea 6:1 and 2, for the punishment is 2 days, and he doesn't mean 48 hours. 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord. And it's up now. The time's just about up. So then Yeshua paid the price for the sins. So when he appears and we see him, boom, the sins are gone. Go up against the land of Merathaim. That's a throwback to the old Babylon. Even against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod, same thing. Waste and utterly destroy after them, saith Jehovah, and do according to all that I have commanded thee. A sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. Notice it says the sound of battle is in the land. It's not talking about the people laying siege to America, surrounding it like they're going to do to Israel in Zechariah 12. The battle in the land, they're already there. They snuck in to avoid a big blowout war, very similar to the way Cyrus attacked the old Babylon. So the Jews don't get killed arbitrarily in the big battle. If China and Russia came and dropped 25,000 bombs all over America, there'd be a lot of people dead. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder, and how broken how is Babylon, because became a desolation among the heathen. They later, so obviously it's not Israel, it's the heathen. I have laid a snare for thee, and that's what's going on with Biden now. He's in a snare from the Lord. Thou art also taken, O Babel, and thou wast not aware thou art found, and also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. Jehovah hath opened his armory and brought forth the weapons of his indignation, of his anger. For this is the work of Adonai Jehovah, of armies, in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from the utmost border, open her. Well, I used to say that was Alaska, but the word utmost, put into the Hebrew, is men from Ketz. Let's see how, whoops. Let's see what Strong says about it. It means end or border. It doesn't necessarily mean utmost, it just means an end or border, from border or end. They put the word utmost in there. So it could be the southern border or anything like that. Open her storehouses, that could be military equipment, warehouses, could be food. Cast up her as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. It's very destroyed. Slay all her bullocks, let them go down to the slaughter. Woe unto them. Those are all the tough guys, the police and federal agents, I think. Gangs, Let them go down to the slaughter. Woe unto them, for their day is come, the time of their visitation. The voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babel, to declare in Zion the vengeance of Jehovah Elohim, the vengeance of his temple. Now, I do not believe the daughter of Babylon is still around when we get the next temple, let alone having time to defile the next temple or anything like that. I could be wrong, I don't think so. Time is very, very short. So I think this is a throwback to the whore who was behind the original Babylon. That's your Revelation 17, whore of Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, and also behind America. The vengeance of his temple, from the old temple. That Babylon went into Solomon's temple, and they messed it up very badly. Call together the archers against Babylon, all you that bend the bow, camp against it round about, let none thereof escape. So they're containing everybody inside America so they can't get out. So they're around the borders of America to keep them all in there, I guess. Nobody's coming to the aid of America, no NATO or anything else, so they might already be at war. Keep going. according to her work, according to all that she hath done. Do unto her, for she hath been proud against Jehovah, against the Holy One of Israel. It might be that Russia starts engaging Europe in wars before the daughter of Babylon, like he attacks Poland, Estonia, a couple of places like that, right? That would get NATO all riled up in Europe and probably cause America to bring more troops in. They only got 20,000 working with NATO now. To make a decent show of themselves with NATO, be able to look them in the eye, they'd probably have to send 50 or 60,000 troops in. They have almost, or maybe even half of the American troops overseas right now, and that helps the sleeper agents tremendously. If they can keep getting more and more to leave America and go to different parts around the world, it makes it easier. To take out America, but they have to pay attention to the fact that NATO is going to get a phone call from America, come help us. We got our soldiers overseas, and the response that they want from NATO is, how can we help you? We're under attack ourselves. We're at war. You're on your own, dude. See what I'm saying? For she hath been proud against Jehovah. Now, has Biden not been proud against Jehovah? Against the Holy One of Israel. See, again, he's pronouncing himself as Kadosh Israel, Holy One of Israel. Therefore shall her young men fall in the street. Now, there's going to be people that are going to try to fight back, I imagine. And all her men of war shall be cut off in that day. So, you got to look at this. Her men of war is her military. Cut off means dead in that day. Let's make sure it says that day. It says he, Yom. Yeah, I wouldn't say that day in the day, but yeah, it's that day. So that's what I'm saying. They're going to attack. How can it be otherwise? They're going to surround all the big military bases in America, which is probably no more than 8 or 9 or 10. And they're going to, or maybe they'll get the little ones too, which is probably another 10 or something. And they're going to attack them and kill them. It's not going to be from planes and Navy ships, because that would normally take more than a day. They'd know they were coming. They would try to stop them from invading. They would go into hiding and stuff like that. This is ambush, is the word is. They're going to, bushwhack the base suddenly. They'll all coordinate and do it all on the same day. Behold, I am against thee, O most proud, saith Adonai Jehovah of armies. For thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. And the most proud shall stumble and fall. And those are the demon-worshipping people, the most proud. And none shall raise him up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities. Build a fire in his cities, and it shall devour or burn up all round about him. Jeremiah 50:33. Thus saith Adonai, Jehovah of hosts, or armies, the children of Israel, and it's basically saying Ben Yisrael, the sons of Israel, which could mean the women too, and the children of Judah, same word, Ben Judah, Ben Yisrael, Ben Judah, were oppressed together, and all that took them captive held them fast. They refused to let them go. It might come a time when Biden doesn't want to let any Jews out of Israel. Could be, maybe not. It could be just mentioning it in the past. Or likely would be that he tried to stop it, I guess. Their Redeemer is strong, Jehovah of armies is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause. Now, the word for plead is not plead. They try to confuse you by water it down. It's contend, to strive or fight for their cause, not plead. That he may give rest to Haaretz, the land of Israel, and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Well, they're pretty disquieted these days. A sword is upon the Chaldeans, saith Jehovah, and upon the inhabitants of Babel, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. Princes of the rich, the politicians, this type of thing. A sword is upon the liars. Well, there's a ton of those in America. And they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their horses, and upon the chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. So it says, sword upon their chariots and upon all the mingled people. No, America's called the melting pot, mingled people, got it? That are in the midst of her, and they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. That can be museums, food storehouses, military weapons, diamond center, everything and anything, A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. Now that can happen rather quickly. Remember the Red Sea, if God wants to do it. For it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Therefore, the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever. Neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, saith Jehovah, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. Behold, a people shall come from the north, that's anywhere north of Israel, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of Haaretz, of the earth, many different kings. They shall hold the bow, so they send the soldiers that are the sleeper agents. That's what that's talking about, okay. They shall hold the bow and the lance. They are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array, like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babel. The king of Babel hath heard the report of them, and his hands waxed feeble. Anguish took hold of him, and pangs as of a woman in travail. See, I don't think they're in on it. I think Biden is trying to get votes with leaving the border open, and it could have been Barack Obama's idea too, and because they're friends, and it blew up on them, the snare. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan unto the habitation of the strong, but I will make them suddenly run away from her. And who is a chosen man? Okay. I may appoint over her, for who is like me, and who will appoint me the time, and who is that shepherd that will stand before me? I believe he's talking about the two witnesses. He's talking about Yeshua and possibly the anointed prince that'll be in the temple from the line of David. It could be all of those or some of those. Therefore hear you the counsel of Jehovah that he hath taken against Babel, and his purpose that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. At the noise of the taking of Babel, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. And now we go to Jeremiah 51. Thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will raise up against Babel and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind. Well, that's probably, I don't want to scare you, but it's probably those tornadoes in the last 10 days. The continuing whirlwind of the Lord. I mean, I'm telling you, the time is very short. And will send unto Babel fanners that shall fan her and shall empty. Look, I'll tell you something. I don't think there's any prohibition against me telling you this. I wanted to order an item. It's a red light therapy device, and the company can't promise the shipment before the beginning of August. They said they'd try to do it at the end of July, and the Lord stopped me. Don't buy it. Basically, I'm not going to need it then, See what I'm saying? And will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her. That's the looters and the pillagers. They separate the wheat and the chaff, tares and the wheat and stuff like that. That shall fan her and shall empty her land. They take all the good stuff out of the land. For in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. Okay, they shall be against her. What's the against word? Al. It's not exactly against, it's on or upon, not against. They shall be on, and then the roundabout word is two words, min, from, sabab, from, stay open, you dumbbell. I don't trust them. Let me go to Strong's. It could be about, compass, and so forth. What does that mean? It means they're inside America, closing the borders so nobody gets out. They're playing wipeout. Okay? Shall be on her or upon her around from without. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself in his brigadine, and spare you not her young men, destroy you utterly all her host, all her army. They all get. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they that are thrust through in her streets, they get killed in the streets. So it could be an invading army, I mean, in the streets, but it's more lending itself to these sleeper agents being turned loose in the different cities and stuff like that. Remember, there's enough of these people to probably make up as many soldiers as the biggest 3 or 4 countries in the world have combined. It's a huge invasion. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God, of Jehovah of armies, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One. The Holy One of Israel. So he's announcing, it's actually in Hebrew, from Kadosh Israel, from Holy One of Israel. Flee out of the midst of Babel, and deliver you every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity. Now, I don't know for sure, but there might be a day when I will tell you it's time to go, but I don't know that. The internet could be gone by then. I don't know. I'm just guessing, so interesting. For this is the time of Jehovah's vengeance. And there'll be confirmations if I do that, because you're all going to be having to get a lot of help from the Lord. Shut up, Yaffa! Shut up! The Lord's vengeance, he will render unto her a recompense. Well, that's year of recompenses, day of vengeance, visitation. Babylon hath been a golden cup in Jehovah's hand, that made all the earth drunken, including Israel, all the earth, including Israel, all the land drunken. The nations, the Goyim, have drunken of her wine, therefore the Goyim, the heathens, are mad. Well, they followed her, the Whore of Babylon, America the great voice, the great sword. All the nations assemble there in the United Nations. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Suddenly. What's the word for suddenly? 6597, Pitom. Surprisingly, suddenly. Suddenly. It's suddenly. Fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. So howl for her would be like, the way the Arabs go, oh, or they do that noise when they mourn. Howl for her, take balm, that's salve or cream or something like that, for her pain, if so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babel, but she is not healed. Forsake her. In other words, she's not getting healed. Drop her like a hot potato, forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country. This is what the people, not true believers and not from Israel, are going to say. They can go back to Mexico or Guatemala or Brazil or Pakistan, whatever. Everyone into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. Jehovah hath brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of Jehovah Elohim. So they're saying they're going to Israel and they're going to declare what Jehovah did to them. So it doesn't sound like there's television and internet right then and there, but I could be wrong. There might be television and internet in Israel and other countries, but just not in America. So we don't know. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Jehovah hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes. For the spirit of the king, that's the Median Empire. Those are the similar nations I just mentioned. For his devices against Babel to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Jehovah, the vengeance of his temple from the past, applied because it's the same Babylonian Hur that was running the old Babylon and the new Babylon. So there's a spiritual implication here that's rather significant and strong. Set up the standard, the sign, upon the walls of Babel. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen. Prepare the ambushes. You see, the enemy's going to do ambushes, sneak attacks. Okay? And they're going to be watching from the wall. They're going to be afraid of a big incursion coming in from Mexico, apparently. Or maybe a big incursion is already what's happened, where they come in, 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever every day, and it's a steady drip. And the watchmen could be the people like in Texas that are trying to shut it down. Okay? Jehovah hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babel. So it's not just against the land, it's against the people. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, many waters abundant in treasures, abundant in treasures. That's America. Thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Oh, they're covetous. Jehovah of hosts hath sworn by himself, saying, surely I will fill thee with men, as with caterpillars. Now, he's not talking about caterpillars to eat the crops. He's saying, I'll fill thee with men. Okay? The word for men is Adam, which means male humans, basically. And as with caterpillars, so there's going to be a lot of them. And those are your sleeper agents. And they shall lift up a shout against thee. That would probably be synchronized attacks. He hath made the earth by his power. He hath established the world by his wisdom. And hath stretched out the heaven by his understanding. He stretched out the heaven by his understanding. Okay. When he uttereth his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heavens. And he causeth the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He maketh lightnings with rain, and bringeth forth the wind out of his treasures. Every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded. Every founder is confounded by the graven image, for his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity, the work of errors. In the time of their visitation, they shall perish. There it goes. The portion of Yaakov is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Jehovah of armies is his name. Speaking of Israel, thou art my battle axe and weapon of war. For with thee will I break in pieces the heathen, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. So we're going to minimally at least be taking land back that belongs to us, I guess. And with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider. And this could be Zechariah 12. And with thee also will I break in pieces man and woman, and with thee will I break in pieces old and young, and with thee will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock. And with thee will I break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen. And with thee will I break in pieces captain and rulers. And I will rend unto Babel and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil. They reap what they sow. All their evil that they have done in Zion. And I'm telling you, October 7th, it was Biden working Netanyahu in there. They were working it together. And what's going on in Gaza, dragging out the war, not helping us in Lebanon like he said he would, and all this other stuff. All their evil that they have done, holding the bombs back after they encouraged us to get into a war, in your sight, saith Jehovah. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith Jehovah. Mountain's very big empire, which destroyeth all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. So from a great big empire to a burned out mountain. Remember, he destroys them with fires. I will kindle fires in and about your city. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith Jehovah. He's setting an example to them so the other nations understand what happens if you turn against him, against Israel, against him. Set you up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare you prepare among the nations, prepare the nations, the heathen, prepare the heathen against her, against the daughter of Babylon. Call together against her the kingdoms of Arat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. Those are the stand kingdoms that are allied with Russia. I read you the names of some of them, if not all of them, like Armenia and Azerbaijan and stuff like that. Maybe there's one or two more that would be the stand countries. Appoint a captain against her. So they'll have a leader in the midst of these sleeper agents. Cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion. I think when you're talking the Medes, you would be picking up Iran and 13 stuff, I think. I'd have to do it off my head. You can look for the Median Empire in the Bible, but I think we're pretty close with the geography and of the enemy that have the soldiers in there doing the attack. And the land shall tremble in sorrow. Now, a lot of the Muslims living in America, which is probably, other than sleeper agents, at least 10 or 20 million or 12 million or something like that, they may be joining the sleeper agents too, which greatly increases their numbers. You understand? I have no reason to think that, but it could be. I have no scripture to base this on, but it could be. And the lands that got Muslim training centers for war there and stuff, so it could very well be. And the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of Jehovah shall be performed against Babel, to make the land of Babel a desolation without an inhabitant. And it's certainly going to set a future role model of what happens if you're going to go against Jehovah and Yeshua. The mighty men of Babel have forborne to fight. They're so scared they don't even fight. And that got to tell you a lot. They have remained in their holes. That reminds me of the survivalists and the preppers. But it could also be the apartments and stuff. They're not coming out. Their might have failed. That's what happened with the Jews when the Nazis were running them off and stuff like that. Their might have failed. They became as women. They have burned her. One more time. Or kindled fires in about the city. They're going to be weary. They're going to get burned up. Burned her dwelling places. That's what happened to us on October 7th. Her bars are broken. One post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon, that would be, unless there's a change, Biden, that his city is taken at one end. So the internet's and the electricity and stuff is out because they're using foot messengers. And that the passages are stopped, and the reeds have burned with fire, and the men of war are affrighted. For thus saith Jehovah of armies, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her. Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest is come. And the harvest is separate the tares and the wheat, the junk. The junk gets thrown in the fire. I will kindle a fire in her boundless cities. Got it? And the wheat gets gathered into the barn, which is Israel. Second Exodus. It's very simple. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, hath devoured me. He hath crushed me. He hath made me an empty vessel. He hath swallowed me up like a dragon. He hath filled his belly with my delicates. He hath cast me out. That was the old Babylon, the burning Solomon's temple and taking the artifacts and all of that stuff. And that's what happens to this Babylon, because it's the same whore of Babylon in both Babylons. So he's doing it to her this time. The violence done to me and to my flesh be upon Babel, shall the inhabitants of Zion say, and my blood upon the inhabitants of Chaldea shall Jerusalem say. I guess they become very wide awake. Therefore thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will plead thy cause. It doesn't really mean plead. It's going to mean he's going to fight our cause and take I'll check this again. Strive or contend. Yeah, he's going to stand up for, or he'll be a contender for us. What's a heavyweight contender? There's a heavyweight champion at the boxing ring, and there's a guy that's a heavyweight that's going to contend with him or fight with him to get the championship. That's the way you look at this. I will contend or fight for your cause and take vengeance for thee, day of vengeance, and I will dry up her sea and make her springs dry. I don't know what the sea is, the Great Lakes, maybe, I don't know. And Babel shall become heaps, a dwelling place for dragons, and astonishment, and a hissing without an inhabitant. They shall roar together like lions, they shall yell as lions' whelps. In their heat I will make their feasts, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep, and not wake up, saith the Lord. In their heat, well, that's their debaucherous parties and stuff, Epstein Island, sicko. I will bring them down like lambs to the slaughter. They don't know they're getting slaughtered. Like rams with the he-goats. Show how is Sheshach, that's a throwback to the old Babylon, taken, and how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? It's a shock to them. How is Babel become an astonishment among the nations? The sea has come up upon Babel. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to wash over the whole place. You could have 40, 50-foot waves, and they're going to go, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 city blocks inland, But to go from the Atlantic to Kansas, you'd probably have to have a 5,000-foot wave or a 10,000-foot wave. So I think it just washes up on the coastlines. Upon Babylon is covered with the multitude of waves thereon. Her cities are a desolation, a dry land, and a wilderness. A dry land isn't that consistent with waves washing over the place. Waves leave puddles and stuff like that, not a dry land. Wherein her cities are a desolation, a dry land, and a wilderness, a land wherein no man dwelleth, neither doth any son of man pass thereby. So it's desolate forever. And I will punish Bel in Babel, and I will bring forth out of his mouth that which he hath swallowed up, his captives, I guess. And the nations shall not flow together any more unto him. How does that happen? They go to the United Nations in New York. They have their embassies and consulates, all of them, in Washington, D.C. Their embassies, really. Shall no more flow. The UN would be the real big one. Any more unto him. Yea, the wall of Babel shall fall. Again, it could be the literal Mexico, it could be the spiritual defense of the country is gone. My people, go you out of the midst of her, or it could be both, I guess. I think the Mexican wall has something to do with this too. My people, go you out of the midst of her, and deliver you every man his soul from the fierce anger of Jehovah. So you're commanded to get out of there. You're going to have to hit the right timing. Because you can't come to Israel now, and going to the wilderness first doesn't make sense. I don't know what wilderness, where, when, how, what, so you got no place to go right now, I don't think. Unless your heart faint, and if you think you do, ask the Lord to make it happen or illustrate it to you better. And you fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land. A rumor shall both come 1 year and after. Now, there have been rumors of these wars and things in America for years. And after that, in another year, it shall come a rumor. And then it says something different, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. So that's going to happen, resulting in violence. Therefore, behold, the days come that I will do judgment Therefore, behold, the days come that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babylon. And the Muslims are the ones that are going to do that. And because they break these graven images. They've done it in Europe, statues and stuff like that. That's what they do. And her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. Then the heaven and the earth and all that is therein shall sing for Babel, for the spoilers have come unto her from the north, saith Jehovah. As Babel is Muslim states, predominantly from the north here, from us, north of us, as Babel hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, so at Babel shall fall the slain of all the earth. They've caused that to happen with Gaza and stuff like that, October 7th, and other wars, you know. You that have escaped the sword, go away, stand not still. Remember Jehovah afar off, and let Yerushalayim come into your mind. We are confounded because we have heard reproach, shame hath covered our faces, for strangers are come into the sanctuaries of Jehovah's house. Again, I think this is a throwback to the past. I don't think there's enough time for it to happen in the future. I could be wrong, but I'm not leaning in that way. I could be wrong, but I'm not seeing that. Saith Jehovah, I will do judgment upon her graven images, and through, or maybe we'd say throughout all her land, the wounded shall groan. Though Babel should mount up to heaven, and though she should fortify the height of her strength, yet from me shall spoilers come unto her, saith Jehovah. A sound of a cry cometh from Babel. See, the sleeper agents were part of his snare. And great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans. Because Jehovah hath spoiled Babel, and destroyed out of her the great voice. When her waves do roar like great waters. See, the continuing whirlwind of the Lord will do that. And also this hurricane season, which starts in May, it already started, is expected to be horrific. A noise of their voice is uttered. Because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babel, and her mighty men are taken. Every one of their bows is broken, for Jehovah Elohim, no, it says Jehovah El, Jehovah God of recompenses, year of recompenses, shall surely requite, pay back. I will make drunk her princes and her wise men, captains and her rulers. Hold on a minute. Oh, I'm hearing Yafa snore. I thought it was a phone call, or maybe I'm hearing Chief snore. I don't know, I was hearing somebody snore. I have the phone on vibrate. I thought that noise was the phone. I have the ringer on too, and I was concerned. I will make drunk her princes and her wise men, her captains and her rulers and her mighty men, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep, and not wake, saith the king whose name is Jehovah of hosts. So they're going to be in their debauchery and their heat, and they're going to, party, and they're going to go to sleep and not wake up. This is very interesting, and I don't understand. It can't be the whole country doing that at the same time, unless it's some crazy holiday like the 4th of July or something. I don't know. Whose name is Jehovah of hosts. Thus saith Jehovah of armies, the broad walls of Babel shall be utterly broken. And that could be the long walls too, And her high gates shall be burned with fire, and the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary. Well, the people are pretty weary now in America. The word which Jeremiah the prophet commanded Seraiah the son of Neriah the son of Meraiah, when he went with Zedekiah the king of Judah unto Babel in the 4th year of his reign, and his Seraiah was a quiet prince. So Jeremiah wrote in the book all the evil that should come upon Babel, even all these words that are written against Babel. And Jeremiah said to Seraiah, when you comest to Babel and shall see and shall read all these words, then shalt thou say, O Jehovah, thou hast spoken against this place, to cut it off, that none shall remain in it, neither man nor beast, but that it shall be desolate forever, and it shall be when thou hast made an end of the reading of this book, that thou shalt bind the stone to it and cast it into the midst of the Euphrates, and thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon sink and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her, and they shall be weary. Thus saith the words of Jeremiah. Okay, let me check the chat, and then we'll do Revelation 18, which gives us a pretty graphic look at the actual destruction. See if I got. Oh, there's some sick people coming around here. Yeah, Hezbollah in Lebanon's doing a lot of launches every day. Some days 70 missiles, rockets. Most don't cause damage, most get knocked down, and stuff like that. But it weighs on you, I hear the red alerts all day long, All right, let me push myself through Revelation 18. Doing Jeremiah 50 and 51 is always knocks me out because they're so big, those chapters. They're huge. All right, Revelation 17 talks about the whore and the beast, and it doesn't talk too much about anything with specificity about how the battle in America is going to happen. It talks about 10 kings without a kingdom, given power with the beast for 1 hour. It doesn't have tremendous specificity. So we'll read 18. And Isaiah 47 has no specificity either about what nations are doing it. So it's not there. But nowhere in Revelation 17 or Isaiah 47 do we read of an invasion of nations coming in with warships and boats. There's only two ways. They can't walk into America from the oceans, maybe from Mexico. It's the big countries, China, and Iran, and North Korea, and Russia would come by aircraft or navy. It wouldn't come another way. And after these things, I saw another angel go. Unless there was no other way left, there were no planes or ships left. But that's taken big, giant steps, and trying to make prophecy, define prophecy without the scriptures is a bad idea. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. That's not Satan. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. The birds are demons, unclean spirits, and it's saying it's fallen and fallen. It's corrupted. It's gone bad. It's demonic. Okay? For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, fornicating with the whore. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her by worshiping her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So they're selling her all the little fine niceties, the caviar, the expensive meats, clothes, perfume, jewelry, all this stuff, cars, And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people. There you go. Be you not partakers of her sins. So when you're living there, you could very easily be a partaker of her sins. And that you receive not of her plagues. You're not supposed to be there. You're going to get out. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities, her lawlessness. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill unto her double. So she gets a double cup, or a double dose of the wrath of the cup of the Lord, or the wrath of the cup of the Lord. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment, sorrow, give her, for so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and I'm no widow, and shall see no sorrow. No, she's wrong. See a queen, sit a queen. This is Columbia. They have the capital of America named after her. That's the Statue of Liberty. That's the icon from Columbia Motion Pictures. A woman with no breasts that may or may not be a woman. I don't know. Wearing a robe, standing there holding a torch on a pedestal. I have the light come to me, and they named the capital of America after this one. There's also a statue on the roof of the Capitol. Many state capitol buildings have a statue on the top of the building and all that. Shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. In one day. It's one day. You gotta get this. It's not a build-up. How do you do an invasion of America by air and sea in one day? That'd be rough. And wouldn't America see it coming? Sure. In one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. Well, if she's utterly burned with fire, the crops are going to get burned, and now you're at famine, and warehouses and stores of food will be destroyed. And she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Jehovah, I'm in the Greek, for the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, they were worshiping and serving her, and then getting the benefit of the wealth, shall bewail her and lament for her. when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off. Now, how do you stand afar off if it's just surrounding Washington, D.C.? Well, I guess they're standing in other parts of America watching the Capitol burn. It could be they're standing on ships, too. Standing afar off for the fear of the torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. The rest get it in a day. I think this is an hour. So much of the country's getting burned. It's not, it'll all get burned, I think. It's not just Washington, D.C. But on the other hand, it also is Washington, D.C., and they probably get it first. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. For no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Nobody's buying gold-rimmed sunglasses and $500,000 watches and $2 million cars and all this sick stuff. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass, and of iron, and of marble. Now, these things are not only sold in Washington, D.C., probably just a few of these are sold in Washington, D.C. It's the whole country. And cinnamon and odor and ointment and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things that were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off, for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. I think they're standing in their boats watching the place burn, watching America burn, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. It's 1 hour. And every shipman, every shipmaster, and the company of ships, and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off. Now, if America was being attacked by Russian and Chinese and Iranian warships, Navy, how could these merchant ships be standing around there watching? See, it doesn't come that way. If America was being bombed from bombers from, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour was she made desolate. Now, these guys may also be involved in taking the spoil and the loot that the invaders of Babylon collect out of there. They also may include the ships of Tarshish, passenger ships, cruise ships, and they may be there watching this, and then they're going to take the children of Israel and the true believers out of there. Okay, interesting to think about that. It's probably something, one of the two, or both. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. This would go back through time. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft shall be found any more. No more craftsmen found any more in thee, and the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more in thee. It's desolate, and the light the light of the candles shall no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. That's how the big companies do business, with witchcraft and sorcery, spells and tunes. And in her was found the blood of prophets, of saints, and of all that was slain upon the earth. Okay, so I can find nothing about the nations invading. And I think the nations are going to be busy attacking the other nations, fulfilling Jeremiah 30, verse 11. And all this is going to take the pressure off of Israel to do what they want, but first they'll surround Israel and they'll get killed. So it's not really going to take the pressure off Israel. It's going to lead to their destruction. I don't know why they feel good by insulting me. What's the point? That I could care less about the insults. It doesn't mean anything to me. I just ban them, that's all. I gotta block them out. It's a waste of time. Okay. So, that knocked me out. I guess that this came out well, and I guess I'll have bad offerings again, because the more good Bible work I do, the worse I get offerings. I never saw anything like this, I tell you. So anyway, please pray for me and my wife, for our peace, safety, protection, joy, and healing of our bodies, and pray for our finances and offerings, and pray for better videos and live streams, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues. They'd be happy, healthy, and whole. And I hope you got something out of it. And I guess my lot is to preach to people that 90% don't believe in offerings. That's my lot. I got to deal with it. Okay, 3 hours. That was a lot. Knocked me out. Okay, guys, I'm out. I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And for those of you that regularly fall and don't give offerings, it's a possibility that one day you'll be in my position and you'll see how much fun it is to preach to people day in, day out, and dedicate many hours of your day in your old age to doing this, and they don't reciprocate. So maybe you'll reap what you sow. We'll see. Okay, guys, I'm out. Thank you.